All right, we're going to talk about AEO-focused content, but before we get into content strategy, the specifics of production, we need to talk about LLMs, large language models, what they are and how they operate. Very simply, LLMs are like the brain of the AI system. It's what goes out and scours the internet and scours accessible content in order to help the answer engines come up with their answers. When you ask ChatGPT a question, it doesn't just display a whole bunch of links like Google does. It actually does research, crawls content, summarizes it, and then comes up with direct answers. The point is, there's a different strategic approach to publishing content in order to increase visibility on the AI engines than there was for Google visibility. The first major difference between traditional SEO content strategies versus AEO content strategy is the length. Google has preferred for a long time long form, whereas AEO content should actually be shorter. The more concise it is and the more direct, you're able to provide answers to queries that your users have, the more AI is going to love your content. You also want to write for queries instead of keywords. The reason why long-form content worked so well for SEO in the past, one of the reasons why, was because the higher the word count, the more you could stuff keyword phrases in there. Whereas for AEO, you want to focus on full queries, exact questions, and you want to provide concise, direct answers, and you want to do so as early as possible within the form or within the body of that content. So within the first paragraph, it's ideal to provide a direct answer that the LLMs are able to understand, and once they consider your content to be authoritative enough, will use to determine the answers to the specific queries that you focus that content toward. The second major difference would be in the structure, the overall architecture of the content, where with SEO, it was preferable to write long form again, but essay or editorial content, paragraph after paragraph. With AEO, again, you want to be as direct and concise with answers to queries as you possibly can. So FAQs or Q&As, bullet point lists, step-by-step how-to guides are all appropriate strategies for your published content to resonate with the LLMs, to be easily understood and trusted. The next important point about AEO-focused blog content is to create an entity-based topic for every piece of content written. An entity could be a person, a place, a service, a company, a product, etc. But the content should focus on one specific thing as much as possible so that the LLMs can easily understand what this content is relevant for. Now, depending upon what you're trying to say or write about within this content, that would determine how broad or general your entity-based topic could be, because subtopics are absolutely okay. For example, if you're in the HVAC service space, an example of an entity-based topic could be HVAC systems or indoor air quality or something as broad as plumbing systems. Subtopics of all of those could be things like air conditioning repair, air duct cleaning services, water heater maintenance, how to install a smart thermostat, etc., etc. If you're in the health and wellness space, broad entity-based topics could be things like just nutrition or exercise or mental health or sleep quality. And then subtopics could be things like meditation techniques, exercise for beginners, delicious recipes for zucchini, etc., etc. Now, along with formatting your content to be entity-based as much as possible, article by article, comes structured data. Structured data, or schema markup, is a very important part of helping the LLMs to understand your content just as a human being would. A lot of people think AI is so smart and it knows everything just magically, but these are machines and robots. They're not human beings. So a human being can read a blog article and understand that, hey, it's about overall health and wellness with a focus on nutrition, with a focus on delicious recipes for multiple types of vegetables, because they read the content and they understand it. The LLMs can't do that. Therefore, we have to apply code known as schema markup to the content once it's published that makes it readable and understandable available by LLMs. If you're watching this video within our school community, the AEO Collective, there's a whole module built out for Schema Markup. You can learn more about it there. If you're watching this on YouTube or TikTok, we'll make another video soon specifically about Schema Markup. We're going to talk about the differences between creating blog content for traditional SEO focused on Google traffic versus writing blog content for AEO, or AI traffic from the answer engines like ChatGPT and Perplexity. Okay, step one, once you have your pillar content, you can then decide on the individual queries that you want to create the content angled toward. And every query you select should apply directly to that main topic. Now, there are a bunch of ways and a bunch of tools you can use to then determine the queries that you want to focus on. I'll touch on just a few of them here. But generally, they just need to be real-world questions that your users have, that if you can answer, you're gaining a fan, or you're gaining a new site visitor, or you're gaining a potential client or a qualified lead. First, you could use Google and just type in a search for what do most people have questions about regarding HVAC services or about digital marketing services, and just read the queries or questions that Google returns. Another great source besides Google is Reddit and Quora. Go and look at what are the most topically relevant queries or questions being asked, what's trending, what's getting the most responses, and check all the different forms of those queries to decide which one you want to choose to focus on. Next are the AI engines themselves, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini. Typing in something like, what do most people want to know about, then your topic, digital marketing services, HVAC repair. One last tremendous resource that I'll mention is also asked.com, a website dedicated to exactly this, finding topics, blog topics, and questions and queries to focus your content toward. Now, once you determine the individual queries that you want to focus on, the next thing you need to do is to classify or categorize your queries. There are three main buckets of categories: informational, number one; comparative, number two; and transactional, number three. In general, informational and comparative work the best for AEO. Informational is stuff like, how often should I service my HVAC? Or how much should I expect to spend for residential HVAC repair in Phoenix, Arizona? Comparative is a question comparing two things, two or more things. Is a heat pump better than central air conditioning? Or should I invest into SEO or PPC? Then transactional is the most bottom funnel and intent driven as far as what is the best HVAC company in Seattle, Washington, or what's the cheapest tree trimming service in Austin, Texas. Once you have a list of all of these queries, you then want to narrow them down. And when you're selecting them, there's a couple of things to consider. Number one, is this query clearly answerable in a concise and direct fashion? Number two, the answers should be fact-based, not opinion-heavy. Number three, are they connected to a specific product or service? Number four, is there potentially a lack of direct answers, quality answers from reputable sources that you could take advantage of a low level of competition in order to rank for? The next thing you want to do is to check the search volume for these specific queries, and there's a bunch of ways you can do so. Google Search Console. You can use a Google Ads keyword planner to get an estimate of search volumes for specific queries. You can use ChatGPT and Perplexity and other AI engines, or you can use traditional SEO tools that are really good for this: Semrush, Moz, Ahrefs, Mangools, etc., etc. Lastly, you formulate your answers, and that's basically what your blog post is. You want your answers to be like an AI summary, basically. So you want to try to start each blog post with a 40 to 60 word answer, a direct answer to the query that we're focusing on. Then you follow up with deeper context, examples, data, other research, etc., etc. Then when this blog content is published, you want to use an H2 heading that literally contains the question that we're focused on. Lastly, schema markup, appropriately applied. This is just an overall guide to content production. We're not going to dive deep into the schema and H1, H2, H3 tags, etc. But all of that, again, can be found within the community, the AEO Collective. Thank you for watching.